How does a new product get from factory to store shelf? The answer is data, a massive, complex, and constantly changing stream of data that has to be synchronized. If it's not, the entire supply chain breaks. You're listening to the Adapt AI podcast spotlight series, where we feature the change makers and disruptors shaping the future of business and where we learn how industry leaders stay ahead of the game. Want to stay ahead too? Click subscribe so you never miss an episode. I'm your host, Haley, and today we're in for another incredible treat. Our episode would be with talking to a master of this invisible industry and helps brands navigate its complexity. Ladies and lads, we're thrilled to have the CEO of Synchcor, Karen Fleshman. Karen, welcome.
Thank you so much, Haley, for inviting me. I'm very excited to be here and to share my story and my experience about this hidden industry that you talked about that nobody knows anything about. So thank you.
Yeah, wonderful. Now, to get started, you operate in this world where most people don't even know exists, the Global Data Synchronization Network. For everyone listening, how did you first discover this invisible industry and decide to build your career there?
So I was working for a major uh, database company for large manufacturers, and I had a great job there. I was flying all over the country and doing consulting, like 5 days a week and coming home on the weekend. And so I really needed to transition that, to a regular 9 to 5.
Mm,
And so, I left the company and started looking for opportunities.
mm,
And I found the opportunity within the GS1 industry.
mhm,
And so when I found the opportunity, I was the lead of their global technology support operation. And so, in that role, I was responsible for a team of people who spoke multiple languages and who were helping manufacturers all over the globe to share their product data through what is called the Global Data Synchronization Network. And
mhm,
so, how this network works is that it is what we call a one to many connection. So if you are a supplier and you have products that you sell into, for example, Walmart or any major retailer, what
mhm,
you have, the challenge was that you actually had a one-to-one connection to like all of your customers.
mm,
And so it became very difficult for the manufacturers and the suppliers to actually manage that whole process because they would have multiple connections. And so through the data synchronization, what you have is as a supplier or manufacturer, you have a one to many connection to
mm.
all of your customers who are within the network.
Wow.
So, uh, in leading that technical support team, I was able to understand the difficulty of the technology because there are over like 3,000, excuse me, different ways in which you can, excuse me, in which you can define a product. And so if you have a product, you have to focus on your particular data. And so what we found was that it was just very hard for the manufacturers because not only did they have to have this data that was required in the network, but then also each one of their customers had requirements as well,
Mhm,
especially from like a sales and a distribution channel standpoint, because the channel and distribution to Walmart and other Kroger and Albertson, they're all different. And so that requires like a different set of data. It's highly technical, but in this core, okay, it
mhm,
is just a sharing of product data between two trading partners. So
Mm.
it's sharing the product data from, for example, I always, I will, in the US, I use macaroni and cheese because
Mm-hmm.
every person is aware of it. But
Right.
when I'm in, when I'm global and I'm
Mm-hmm.
speaking to international companies, I use
Right.
Nestle. Nestle sells everywhere.
Right.
And the challenge that these manufacturers have is that they need to provide the data to all of their customers that are within this network. And it can be very challenging. And
Mm-hmm.
so the large manufacturers and suppliers, they've got it figured out. Okay. They've invested heavily into this data synchronization infrastructure. But then for the mid-size
Right.
and the small companies, they have more what I would consider like the manual processes. And so that's where like my company, can come in to help.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and so how we come in to help them is through our managed services. We actually um, take over like the full, what we call end-to-end process of data synchronization.
Right.
And it allows our customers to reallocate their staff to high value activities. Okay, because
Mm-hmm.
if you're in the sales operations department, you want your sales analysts working on your customers versus working on data synchronization and ensuring that the network and the data that you're providing is compliant with your customers. And we do that whole process for you. We're experts in this space. We've been in this space for quite a long time.
Mm-hmm.
And we also, we work on, we participate in work groups. We've had the opportunity to actually present, at like our industry standard. And then we are what is called a GS1 solution partner.
Mm.
And what that means is that we have to be certified. There are classes that we're required to take. Yeah, yes, to be able to be compliant in this space.
Wow.
So, that's a long story, to tell you how I got there, but
Wow.
then also to tell you like what we do, what we do since we've gotten into this space.
That's amazing. Like, just very quickly, how long have you been in this industry? You said you've been here in a long time. Like your journey, how long has it,
Yeah.
and how long have you
Yes.
been working on this global data synchronization? Because it sounds very complex. It seems like there's too much details involved, and as you mentioned earlier as well. Yeah, I'll let you answer first before I expound on that. But can you tell us like how
Okay.
long have you been working on this, like in this industry?
Yeah, so specifically, like myself, as the founder, I've actually been in the space 22 years. And, like I said, very long time. And the reason why I'm in this space is because I recognize that there is a problem to be solved here.
Mm.
And the problem, as I talked about earlier, is really what we want to do is to help manufacturers to um, be confident in the data that they're providing, and then also to be in a position, to comply in a timely manner to their
Right.
customers and to help them to get their products on the shelf. And
Mm.
so when you think about, 22 years, that's almost the entire life of the network. The network is like now it's like 25 years old. So the
Mm-hmm.
majority of the time that it has been in existence, I personally have been involved in it. And my team is they've actually been involved in the network as well for an extensive period of time. But what they've done is that they are what we call former GDSN process owners. So they worked for some very large companies, retired, or left the company, and then they start working for us. The
Mhm.
beauty of that is that they understand
Yeah.
the problem that's being solved because they were responsible for it in their
Mm,
former positions. And so
right.
that's a huge advantage for us.
Yeah.
So it's like 22 years in the industry and then 15 years, within um, my own business,
Remember.
Synchcor. Yeah.
That's
Yes.
that's amazing. Like you've been as long as the industry itself, the network itself, as he said. Um,
Yeah.
I was curious as well, like what are these important data that you're helping bridge the gap
Yeah.
that manufacturers don't even know that they have to comply with? And that's where you said you come in because some mid-sized companies, manufacturers need to before their products get into the shelves of the store, there are certain requirements that they need to be compliant with. Why is that important? And what are those? Like, I know there's a lot. It must be an extensive list, but just to give an idea of what are kind of the categories that are needed to in order for them to be um, compliant, to be.
Okay. That's a very good question. And so the way that it works is that products are defined by categories. And so, confectionery does not need the same attributes, for example, as like a hammer, in Home Depot.
Mm,
So the first thing is that you have to identify the product class or product uh, category, if you will.
mhm,
Then there are certain attributes that, for example, all products need.
mm,
For example, like they need product descriptions. They
yeah.
need to know the feature and benefits of that product. They need to know the dimensions of the product. They need to know, of course, the weight of the product, right? So that's standard across all products. But then you have category specific products. For example, you don't need a nutrition fact panel on a hammer,
Right.
but you do need it in the confectionery space. And you
Mm,
also need attributes like allergens and, if there's any nutritional claims on the product. So there's quite a bit of data that's required in order to be compliant. And it's based on the specific category. So yeah,
wow.
that's how it
That,
works.
that totally like why would a hammer need some nutritional facts? But those that would you say like the perishable ones would need certain requirements because uh I think you mentioned earlier that customers are more sophisticated now with what they consume and what they buy and what kind of information they need from the products that they're buying. Would you,
Yeah. So that, just to give you a little bit of background, about the network. So the network originally was designed from a logistics standpoint.
mm,
So the whole aspect, from um, the supply chain, like the traveling of the products through the supply chain and ultimately into the stores and of course then onto the consumers. And so supply chain data, again, they're concerned about weights, they're concerned about dimensions, how tall is it, how wide is it, they're
mhm,
concerned about that. And so that was how the actual industry was originally established. And one of the main points was that it was designed to help manufacturers and also retailers to ensure that the trucks that were delivering the items, that they were maximizing the space and of the trucks. So when you think about a truck, that's on the road, the products in there have been strategically calculated to
Wow.
determine like how many can we get on this truck. And so that's how it was started. And then another piece of it was when you think about a truck, it goes one way, drops off the product. So how do you make sure that the supply chain is efficient? So when it goes back to, for example, the distribution center, or the manufacturing facility, that is not empty. Okay. So, it's one way you go full, and you don't want that same truck going back empty.
Right.
So
Yeah.
when it was all started, that was the main concern.
Mhm.
Okay. Because an inch or feet off within a truck, is, you're actually losing money, right?
Mm.
Because every case that's on a truck, you know, um, there's a there's a cost that's associated with it.
Mm.
And so that's where it started. But then it changed.
Okay.
And so the logistics data was foundational. Okay, so
Right.
everybody has to provide logistics data. But
Yeah.
then, as I alluded to in terms of my example of the hammer and confectionery, so confectionery is candy.
Yeah.
And so what wound up happening was that the consumers kind of raised their head and it's like, we want to know what's in your product. We
Mm.
want to know where it was manufactured. We want to
Mhm.
know, is it heart safe or is it GMO friendly? So the
Mm.
consumers started really asking for more data.
Mm.
And not only that, but from a nutrition fact panel standpoint, the
Right.
FDA
Of course.
expanded like their requirement, for data, within the industry. And so now what's happened is that you have the consumer driving the demand
Yeah.
for more data, but then you also have the retailers that are demanding more data because they want to sell. So they want to make sure that your products are as attractive as possible,
Mhm.
right, on their websites. So
Mhm.
when you go out, for example, to like Walmart to buy Nestle Halloween candy or
Mhm.
to buy Nestle Easter eggs and things like that,
Mhm.
they want the manufacturers now to tell a story about that
Uh-huh.
product.
Wow.
So they've expanded the requirements for product descriptions,
Right.
everything like e-commerce related. They want to ensure that that data is pristine and
Mhm.
that, it's attractive to the
Mhm.
consumer. So yeah, that's
There's so
a
much
little bit
power
more.
in data, like, from being able to optimize a space in a logistics truck back and forth to now, the consumer is having the ability to trace where their food or whatever they're consuming, is coming from and what is actually, involved in the process of making it, down to
Yeah.
like the retailers, whether they would think it's a sellable product or not, and being able to choose between a gamut of options of different categories. So it's a
Mhm.
very, very complex, you know, in and out, high and lows of the entire industry itself. W- Being that, just continuing on you being in the industry for a very long time now, what was the single spark, that the core problem that you saw in the industry, that compelled you to build Syncor?
Well, I actually saw, so, when I talk about my time, within, like GS1, or I should say in this industry,
Mhm.
um, I was very fortunate. I had, positions in technical support, leading that operations from a global perspective. So I knew, the technology,
Mhm.
and I knew how it worked.
Mhm.
Okay. And I also knew how manufacturers and suppliers were struggling with the technology. So that
Mhm.
was one aspect. Then also I did like some implementation.
Mhm.
So implementation where, it's a brand new customer in the industry,
Mhm.
and really seeing how it was very challenging for them, to get the required data. Then I went on into an account management role. And in that role, I was actually working with the companies and the manufacturers and the suppliers in the industry.
Mhm.
And then I could see right off
Mhm.
in that role how the manufacturers and the suppliers were struggling under the weight of the requirements,
Mhm.
because they're experts at selling. They're not experts at technology. And
Mhm.
so I felt that they really needed
Mhm.
some assistance,
Mhm.
to help them to navigate the complexity of the data synchronization. Because just like our few minutes together, you're able to see it's a
Yeah,
complex process.
right. It is.
And so with that, I felt like with my background that I could help. And
Yeah.
so, yeah, so that's how I, wind up starting my company. And it's interesting actually because, um, like my first customer was one of my customers. My first customer as a business owner
Mhm.
was one of my customers, when I was working within the industry. So
Mhm.
yeah, yeah, like you said, you got it right off. It is very complex.
It's very complex. And as you also said, the manufacturer's focus is more of like just producing and being able to maybe scale at a certain speed, level of, speed, but at the same time, for the retailers as well, being able to sell because they're retailers, they're
Right.
owners, right? So because of these requirements that are also important in making decisions, logistics wise, and even the marketing part of the business itself, there
Hmm.
has to be. I love, maybe is that the reason why you named it Synchcor, because it's a synchronization of all these data that are important in the business.
Yeah. Yes, and that's also a good question of the name, because um, we rebranded in 2022
Mhm.
during COVID, and what we were thinking is we trying to come up with the name for it that help people understand like what we do.
Mhm.
Okay, and so it's not necessarily short for anything, but it does identify that, we help you sync, whether or not it's through the GDSN.
Mhm.
I mean, we can help customers sync their data through multiple outlets.
Mhm.
Okay. And so GDSN just happens to be like the primary area in which we work. But yeah, so you're talking about data synchronization. There's also the whole aspect of like what we call data syndication. And
Mhm.
data syndication, it exclusively focuses on like e-commerce,
Mhm.
making sure that um, the manufacturers have the opportunity to tell their stories about their products, and you'll see that when you look at like large manufacturers.
Mhm.
They've got pristine images of their
Mhm.
products. They have um, lifestyle images, what they call them lifestyle images, and you can actually see their images in use, right? In an image that's on the website. And so all of those things really drive sale. And so, you got data synchronization that does the same thing. But when you think about data syndication, again, it's focused on, like how are you appearing online?
So the brand
Because it's
visibility.
critical. Yes, how the brand is appearing online. That's just really critical. So yes. So I think, yeah, that's how we help.
Amazing. Now, you also shared a couple of times earlier that you're an active participant in this GS1
Yes.
work group that set industry standards. How does having that insider's view of what's coming next, or being an active participant, help you and your clients prepare for the future?
Yes. So what we do, the value of participating in the work groups is that you not only do you get the knowledge first or the information first, but you also have the ability, in our case, is to advocate on behalf of our clients, right? So as industry activities are changing, we're able to, as a work group participant, you're able to provide insight, okay, and provide um, insight in terms of like what the final decision should be as it relates to the mission and the vision
Mhm.
of that work group. So usually what happens is that there's some problem that has been identified in the industry, whether, and it may not necessarily be a problem, but a change is
Right.
happening in the industry.
Mhm.
And a good example is that in 2027,
Mhm.
um, the industry is going to be moving toward GS1, what we call it. It's a barcode. It's called GS1 data matrix. Okay.
Okay.
So today, when you scan a product in point of sale, that barcode is a UPC. And in 2027, you'll be able to scan a different barcode, which would be a GS1 data matrix. And in
Mhm.
scanning that product, going across point of sale, there's like an explosion of data that the manufacturer will receive regarding that product. Where today, what they have is a description of the product, what it is,
Right.
and the brand owner of the product. But when the GS1 data matrix barcode happens and it's sunrise, what we call sunrise, so it's like it actually goes live, if you will, in
Uh,
2027, not only will they be able to know the brand owner and the with the actual product, there's over like 100 different ways that they can get additional information about that product. For example, I talked about product description
right.
earlier.
Mhm.
They will have that type of information. They'll be able to have information like on the spot of like the dimensions of the product, and then ultimately they'll be able to use that data at point of sale, throughout like throughout their systems. So we're participating in that group. We have identified it as a huge benefit for our clients. And
Mhm.
so, we've had meetings,
Mhm.
to let them know, that well,
Come.
it's like a year away, when you think about it, because we're almost into 2026, right?
Right, right.
And, and so, really navigating them through like how to prepare for it, to
Mhm.
build, to have that, to know it's happening and the
Mhm.
benefit to them as
Mhm.
well as their customers, and then like navigating them through the process of like ultimately implementing that GS1 data matrix barcode.
You answered
Yeah.
my next question. Like, how are you helping your clients, make that leap from pure data to the, the next way of sharing information through this sunrise um, matrix? Is that what it's called? Like
Data matrix, GS1 data matrix. Yeah.
in
Yeah.
2027. Yeah. So,
Yeah.
Speaking of clients, could you just share a little bit of a recent client transformation? Apart from this, you're bridging the gap to the next phase of sharing data from between manufacturers to retailers to consumers. Um,
Yes.
what particularly recent client transformation or win that you're particularly proud of, that you got?
Yeah. I mean, yeah, there's actually a few of them. Um, what I would say is that we have a customer, they're a manufacturer, but they're also a distributor as well. And so what that means is that they manufacture their own products, but they also sell other companies' products as well.
Okay.
So they are introducing what we call a PIM, which is a product information management system.
Mhm.
And so what that system does is that it is like it is an extension of data synchronization.
Mhm.
So instead of a manufacturer going into the network to um, like add a new item, they'll go into this PIM
Mhm.
the PIM, they'll go into the PIM that will require them to to not put in, they don't have to put in as much information as they
Mhm.
do in the network. And
Mhm.
so it's a benefit to them because today what's happening is that they're sending Excel files,
Mhm.
or PDFs.
Mhm.
Implementation of the PIM, it would automate that process. And then it will be validations in place. So
Mhm.
like today, um, there's no way to, when you're working with a spreadsheet, there's no way to validate it, until it gets into the system and it's identified as a problem.
Right.
But through this PIM, you'll have different points in the process that will validate the data. And so there's not all that kind of back and forth with the
Yeah.
spreadsheets and,
Yeah.
and things like that. And if the company like the one that I'm working with, they're global.
Yes.
And so, the system, the PAM is able to manage the languages, and things like that. So our role uh, on this implementation, this PIM implementation, is from a GS1 standards perspective. So
Mhm.
we want to ensure as they are implementing under the guides and the requirements of GS1. So that's our role. And it's, it's a pretty important one because um the customers on both sides have to use GS1. They are part of the GS1 community. So yeah, so we come in as like the experts in the space. It's just to ensure that they're following, the standards,
Yeah.
and then not only the standards, but also the requirements of the retailers or the food service distributor. So whoever is sending that data to,
Yeah.
they'll have requirements as well. And so we'll work with them to ensure that not only are they providing, for example, the data for the network, but they're
Yes.
also providing data for their customers. So
Yes.
that's a huge initiative that we're working on, and we're very proud to be a part of it.
That's huge undertaking for sure. And like also props to you and congratulations for being able to see it through from end to end, as you said. Um, I'm also curious, Karen, like even though you said it's end to end, it seems like it's a never ending process because manufacturers would come up with a new product as well, and there's going to be a new requirement. But just from like, a simple way to view it, w- how long does it take to synchronize one particular product of a manufacturer to what is required by the entire network? Um,
Okay.
you know,
All right. So, like your previous question was about a project. Okay. And so a PAM implementation is a project, but then you move on to what we call programs. And within our business, the four walls of our business, it becomes a program. And the program is under the services that we provide called managed services. Okay, so that means that take over, or we work with our clients and they send us the data, and then we take over the entire process from the point that our clients send us the data
Mm-hmm.
to the point, we get it in the network on their behalf, and then we manage uh, any issues that they may have within the network, and then we work with them on the requirements for like their customers, and then
Right.
ultimately ensure that their data is synchronized. Going back to that name, right? So
Right.
yeah. So, again, you talk about end to end, it's from the start, the loading of the data, and then um, ensuring that it's validated within the data pool. Publishing is when we send the data to the retailer or the food service distributor. So we manage that entire process, on our customers' behalf.
Is there a
Yeah.
specific timeline that has to be completed for your client?
Well, it depends. And so what we have is, so where we will be introducing, an AI solution, internally,
Mhm.
within our operations to actually make this process more automated.
Yeah.
Because today, for midsize and also for small
Mhm.
manufacturers that are in this industry, they're either um, they're either entering it manually,
Yeah.
into the network,
Yeah.
or they're entering it through a spreadsheet. And so you have that challenge of human,
Error.
intervention has a tendency to cause errors. And so our new solution, will allow us to ingest our customers' data and actually get it into the data pool with like limited human intervention. So, yeah, we're really excited about it. And it will be launching in January,
Mhm.
right after the holidays. And so we're really excited about that. But again, the value of the AI solution is that we won't touch our customers' data. We
Oh.
take whatever, what we call like input files that they send us, we'll
Mhm.
take that data and we'll
Uh-huh.
be able to transform it into a format that it can actually go into the network. So, the human intervention is very limited. Matter of
Mhm.
fact, it pretty much only happens like when there's an exception,
Mhm.
where, for example, for some reason, um, say for the example, the data that the manufacturer provided, that it was, incorrect. It may have been the weights are off or something like that, and it
Yes.
failed a validation. So
Mm.
that's when we get involved with exceptions.
Mhm.
So again, it's more of a hands off approach,
Mhm.
and the beauty of it is that um, there's not this kind of fat fingering thing that goes on sometimes when someone enters the wrong data
Yeah.
incorrectly. We're
Yeah.
taking our clients our clients data specifically from them,
Mhm.
and then loaded it into their data pool on their behalf. And
Amazing.
then from there we manage the process until it's at the end, and the end is that it's been what we call synchronized.
That is a
Yeah.
massive leap forward, and it will
It-
dramatically increase efficiency because, as you said, human errors can also add up to the timeline of when
yes,
certain
yes.
requirement has to be submitted. So that's amazing. Like, but would you have given it as well, this AI solution that you're going to be launching by January sounds really exciting. Is that something that has been already like tested to see if,
Yeah, of
you
course.
pick up the
We
right
went,
validation or whatnot?
yeah. So actually, this is something that we have been contemplating and, actually working on and had knowledge of it. I mean, it's been like 8 years. Um, we built out a visual basic system that was very similar.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and it was just too difficult to manage.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And so, but through AI,
Yeah.
and the automation that we realized through AI, it's a lot more, like I said, efficient. You know, it's it's easier to set up new clients and set up new customers and clients. And then it's also much easier to introduce like new products or to make changes to existing products. So it's much more like efficient than the way the industry operates today, from a manual perspective. Yeah, so like I said, it's not as manual as it was, and then there's so much value, to the manufacturer or the supplier, to work with us on this because another value that we provide, and I kind of talked about this earlier, is that um, we do this all day. And I'm hoping that, you can see like the passion that I have and my company we have in doing this work, because we give like our customers an opportunity to not have to focus on the network and what's changing, in the network, because there's always changes not only with the network, it comes from so many different places. For example, I talked about the FDA, there's changes there. There's global changes that they have to be aware of. There are changes with their customers, whether they're food service distributors or retailers. And so we take care of that on their behalf.
Mhm.
Okay. So that they don't have to, like I said, have, people dedicated to doing this work. And because we're able to become an extension of our customers' teams. So when they're having problems, if there's a problem with the data, we take over that process. It's our job to get that problem solved. So
Right.
not only do we work within the network on their behalf, but we also work with them, with their customers on their behalf, especially as it relates to data synchronization or data syndication.
Leave it with the experts, and for someone who has 22 years
I
under her belt,
love that.
you know?
I love that. That's a
It's
good way to put it. Yeah,
right? Leave
yeah.
it with the
You can,
experts. Amazing.
yeah, thank you.
Karen, just like one final question about that. Did you receive any resistance from your customers? Is this something that they're already aware of that that's going to be implemented to help them synchronize or like submit data in a more efficient manner and also
Yes.
lower the risk of human error? What
Yeah.
has there been any resistance at all?
No. Well, like I said, we haven't launched, we've completed the proof of concept, and then, now we're into the go-to-market strategy. And so that's where the challenge is for us because um we are and we have been like the entire 15 years, we have not done a lot of marketing. Okay. Um, because we acquire our customers through referrals
Mhm.
and then also from what is called within the industry, we have the GS1 solution partner
Mhm.
finder. It's the
Right.
GS1 solution partner finder. And so what happens is that if you're a manufacturer or a supplier that is having challenges,
Yes.
with data synchronization, you can go out to the finder and look for companies like mine that work within data synchronization, and you have the chance, you have the opportunity to, to select us and contact us, and we analyze like what the situation is and like how we can help. And so that's how we've acquired our customers, through the solution partner finder. And so, and then also through referrals. So the challenge for us is nobody knows that they have an alternative.
Hmm.
Okay. So I mean, when I say nobody, I'm like the whole industry. They
Right.
don't know that they have an alternative, to having an internal team. They can actually outsource this function, to a company like ours, and then we can take over again the end-to-end process on their behalf, freeing them up, to do, like I said, more high value activity, and then they don't need to worry about all of the different changes and nuances,
Hmm.
with that happen within the network. We do that.
Top of
And so we
staying
can
on
help
top
them.
of that as well. Yeah. Because,
Yeah. Yeah.
it.
So that's like that's something different that that we haven't done. And it's really been very exciting, like building out the strategy, and how we're going to approach prospects, and
Mhm.
and things like that. And then most importantly is like making the industry aware that we're available,
Yeah.
because and we're using AI, so we've got a lot of efficiencies, because
Exactly.
there are other companies that do like part of what we do,
Hmm.
and so they have like a traditional kind of what we call a data synchronization model,
Right.
where they have contracted people, to actually type in the customer's data into the system. And so with our AI solution, from our perspective, there's no more of that, you know, um, where you have people typing things in.
Hmm.
Um, and another really, core part about that is, so we're industry experts. We're certified in it. I already told you like how long I've been in it. And also my team has been in it for, like 7, 10 years. So we provide a level of intelligence to the
Hmm.
data. So it's just not data entry. Matter of fact, there was a situation that one of our major customers had, was that they had actually like flipped the dimensions. So the height and the length were flipped, you know, and so their height was 2 inches, okay, and their length was 7.
Oh.
And so there was going to be problems on the shelf. So we were able to identify that before the item got published, and went to their customers. And that
Right.
would have caused a lot of what we call like downstream problems,
Yeah.
if we hadn't caught it. And
Hmm.
so we do a lot of that work where, again, intelligently looking at the data and being able to determine, like, is this correct? Or is this going to be an ultimate problem? So,
Mm.
yeah, and,
Like,
and we do a lot of that.
amazing, because it's like being able to identify the problem before it even happens. And
Yeah.
only someone
Yes.
who have that extensive experience in the industry would be able to like straight away deduce what could potentially be a problem because of
Yeah.
change dimension of a product.
Yeah.
So, yeah, amazing.
Yeah. And just one other thing too about that kind of add on, and like again, like the value of our service is that so I talked extensively about the global data synchronization, right?
Mhm.
But then there is a whole nother system as it relates to GS1 that our team can navigate. Okay. And so what GS1 does, so every barcode, or I should say every authentic barcode, is going to come from what we call a GS1 member organization. And so when there are mergers and acquisitions or divestitures of products, those products need to be moved around. So,
Mm,
if someone acquired a brand,
yeah.
then that data needs to be moved under that acquiring company. And
Wow.
so that doesn't happen. You have to work with GS1, as well as you have to work within data synchronization as well,
Mhm.
to kind of manage through that whole process. So that's a huge value add, because there's a lot of movement, within the industry in terms of, companies buying brands and divesting brands or merging.
Wow.
Yeah.
So it's really important. It's really important to get Syncor in as many teams as possible because this is such a complex process to just leave it to someone or like hire an internal team to do it. There could be additional costs involved, not just with financial, but with time and efficiency as well, the back and forth of it. And you already have
Yeah.
I love that you have already started integrating AI solutions in order to shorten even the gaps that are already existent. You've already spotted them because of the knowledge and high level view that you have within the industry, but also the ins and outs because you're an active participant of the GS1. So it's really important to have someone with that kind of expertise, that level of expertise that you have, um, to be able to connect and just, like I said earlier, leave it with the experts.
Yeah.
First,
So
first, yeah,
you're
go ahead.
exactly right. And that's what, what you just talked about, is that's what we're selling.
Mhm.
We're selling the whole aspect of, let us do this for you. We live and breathe it. We love it. We're very, very good at it. We've got great, references, and have great clients and things like that, who have worked for us, or worked with us, I should say, for years. And so, why not, take that program and, all the nuances of it, and then, like, turn it over to, an expert that can, do it on your behalf, and then also have, an AI solution that ensures that, again, it's efficient. Like I said, there's limited human intervention,
Mhm.
right? And then on top of that, like I said, the intelligence um of the team, and then the intellectual property that we have in this space, right? Because we've been in it, for such a long time. We've developed processes, for how our customers, their specific program needs. And
Mhm.
so what we do is that we create like a playbook for each one of our clients. And that playbook can consist of how we work with not only them in terms of like who sends the data, and then who needs to get contacted once the compliance has happened, but also like each one of their customers. So there could be some specific nuances for their customers, and they're in the playbook. And so we use that for training purposes.
Mhm.
We also, the client, has it as well. And so the way that they've used that, the playbook, is like their leadership team, who may
Mhm.
not understand
Yeah.
the process of data synchronization. When they give them, this playbook,
Yeah.
they're in shock about all of the details that are associated with ensuring that their products are compliant with their customers. So many of them have no idea, but they see, like I said, specifically in the book, how a particular supplier will synchronize data to Walmart, If Walmart's their customer, if Kroger's their customer, Albertsons, they're in that playbook.
That
So that's again,
so much value that you have
exactly,
um,
exactly.
that you do for the companies that you help with, be it mid-size or large size or extra large size that have already been, producing or delivering, distributing globally. Now, with this, just final words from you for anyone listening who wants to achieve even a fraction of the level of success that you have in the world of data synchronization. Could you just share what core belief have you been practicing or have you been like really integrating in your day-to-day life that got you to this, stage, this amazing milestone?
Yes, that's a very good question as well. So, like, our premise is that we consider ourselves, we are the customer, right? So we have the ability to work within within their organization, within their four walls, if you will. And so the key thing about that is there's a certain level um, of accountability, right? So we recognize that, as a company, we have our customers are and ensuring that their data synchronization needs, are met, is that we have the responsibility, to stay on top of the network and to always ensure that our expert level status, continues. Okay. Because people move on, in their roles and things like that. And so we want to ensure that the integrity of our processes, with our customers, like are up to date and things like that. But I think more importantly is that trust. We are a trusted advisor
Mhm.
to our clients and our customers. What we want is to ensure that, again, that the data that they're providing is the data that's needed and that it's authentic and that it has high quality, because
Mhm.
some of the things that we've been fortunate to do, is to help our clients to like raise their level of data,
Mhm.
right? Because at one point it was like one description line for a product description, and it's like, you know what? Well, you want to expand on this, and then we're in a position to tell them why. So, definitely being a trusted advisor, being an extension of their team, ensuring that, we're providing them, like the best possible service in this space. And so, yeah, so, I think all of that kind of culminates into being a trusted advisor. If I had to say it in two words,
Right.
that's how I'd explain it.
So it goes hand in hand. Um, Being able to display that sense of integrity with what you do and how you help your customers, because their success is your success as well, and
Mhm.
really banking on the trust that you're building with the people that you are servicing.
Yeah,
Otherwise, it's
yeah,
at all if you cannot embody those qualities. So yeah.
yeah, and that's a really good point, because there within the network there's systems that you have to go into, like today in the manual process that you have to go into, and also have to go into them when you're solving problems, right, when you're doing troubleshooting.
Yeah.
Some of our clients, since they have transitioned this work to us, they have IDs to the system, but they don't go into the system at all, because they rely on it. They, again, that point about trusted advisor,
Mhm.
they know that we're working, they have the confidence. Matter of fact, that was one of the words that one of my clients used, that she had the confidence that we were handling it on their behalf. And so that's our position with all of our clients.
Well, Karen, thank you for the incredible masterclass on the data that moves the world. I have learned so much, and I'm sure our growing audience would learn more about everything that you have shared so far. It's clear that this, invisible industry isn't just about moving boxes, it's about managing a flow of ever changing, ever evolving flow of data. So how can our audience and anyone who wants to learn more about you or ask for your help be able to reach out to you?
Yeah, so they can reach us on our LinkedIn page, Synchcor, or they can reach out to me on my LinkedIn page, Karen Fleshman, or they can they can go out to our website, and click on, contact us. It's like everywhere on the website, and so they can click on contact us. And then that gets to us, and then ultimately they can contact me at kflushman at syncor.com. Yeah, and then we also have a help desk. So there's a lot of ways to get in contact with us. So we have a help desk at info at syncor.com. So there's quite a few ways to reach us.
And we will all link all those information in the show notes and make sure that when you do
Thank
contact
you.
Karen, that you mention that you watch this podcast. That's why you learn more about it. I,
Yes,
our
yes.
host, Haley, if this conversation helped you think differently about your business, the best way to support the show is to do two things. Number one, share this episode with a colleague, a friend, or a family member. And number two is hit the subscribe right now so you never miss another insight. You have been tuning in to the Adapt AI podcast Spotlight series. Thank you for listening, and we will see you again very soon.
Thank you.